Hi, everyone, and welcome to Quill and Curtain Podcast, a podcast for playwrights by playwrights. This is Darren Friedman, and today we have a total awesome guest, TJ Young. TJ Young is a Texas-born playwright and dramaturg based in Pittsburgh, where he serves as the co-representative for the Dramatists Guild Pittsburgh region. His plays include We Fly, The Inseparables, Isle of Noises, Number 6, Lion's Den, and so many more. He is the recipient of the 2017 Ken Ludwig Playwriting Scholarship and was named 2019 Spotlight Artist of Throughline Theater Company, and he has received his MFA in dramatic writing from Texas State University. He is also the NPP chair for Region 2 of the Kennedy Center American College of Theater Festival, where he also aids with the playwriting intensive and teaches workshops both at the regional and national levels. He is currently an associate professor of dramaturgy at Carnegie Mellon University. TJ, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Oh, you're so awesome. And I've actually met you, and your work recently was in a reading workshop where mine was as well. And I got to know your work it's so exciting. Your voice. And actually, I want to hear about your voice from your perspective, but it's so particular, and I people just really gravitate to your work. So I was wondering if you can give me an idea from your perspective what you believe your voice to be through your work.
Yeah, that's a really great question. For me, it really is about using humor to then set up for, I guess, the dramatic punch, right? A lot of times I like to describe my plays as funny until they're not, which is kind of vague, but people who have experienced my work kind of get that sort of mode from my work. But overall, I like to play with the poetic. I like to play with both in heightened language, but also in like everyday vernacular, because I actually think that people just talk real pretty sometimes. So that's really where I draw the inspiration for at least for my dramatic voice. Yeah.
How did you know playwriting was your vision?
Ooh, that's a great question. When I was little, I used to write short stories and novels and stuff like that. And I was in theater as a little kid and all through high school. And after high school, I actually quit theater altogether, mostly because I went to a predominantly white institution and I was acting, and there were roles that I wanted to do that the theater program just wasn't going to do. And so I was like, I'm kind of done with theater. And it was my first semester actually as a psychology major in undergrad that I was like, I really want to tell stories that I would feel like I want to step into as an actor, and hopefully let other people step into as actors as well. And I was like, it can't be that hard. It turns out it's extremely hard, you know. But it was within that first semester of undergrad that I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. Novels and short stories weren't really working out for me, but I really took to playwriting, and fell in love with it instantaneously.
TJ, what inspires your work, your plays, and where do your stories come from?
Yeah, my work is all about perspective. I like to take really big ideas and what I like to call like the rain cloud of the idea and focus on the raindrop that comes down. How does it affect one person or a group of people in a very specific way? A lot of it comes from me listening to NPR, or engaging in classics and wondering why individuals still are gravitating towards the classics. What do they say about the human condition? But in particular, what do they say about the human condition now? I really like to take perspectives that haven't necessarily been tapped into, or tackle stories that have a little bit more hindsight, because I think that it's really easy to write about the moment when something happens, but I'm always interested in writing about what's the fallout of that and how do these people continue to live their lives.
Tell me about your typical writing process when you first have the inception of an idea through writing the vomit draft to secondary drafts to the final product. What is your process?
Yeah, I do a lot of research. This is where like the dramaturg in me absolutely shows up. I do a lot of research about the topic or the theme or the people in which I want to talk about. And that vomit draft is just that. Sadly, because of my teaching schedule, I kind of end up writing in semester cycles. So during winter break, I usually try really hard to vomit out a draft of a play because I'm like I have 4 weeks where I have uninterrupted time that's just mine, and it is sloppy and it's messy, and I'm really looking at just the mechanics of the play and what I like to call my theatrical stroke. Like, what am I trying to do here? Am I really concentrating on doubling? Am I really concentrating on poetic voice? Am I really concentrating on like nonlinear structure? What am I trying to do here? And then I am lucky enough to have a dramaturg friend of mine who lives in Toronto, Canada, who is completely separated from A, the US experience, and B, academia at this point. So I send him the draft and I get feedback from him. And he is coming at it as just an incredibly intelligent, theater purveyor. And then I use that to kind of go through drafts where I focus on one character at a time. Well, I'll say on this draft, I'm just looking at Sally and everything that she does and all the scenes that she's in, knowing that that's going to have implications on all the other characters as well. But I like to break it down that way so that way I have really focused attacks at my drafts.
What do you think your primary challenges are when you approach your work?
Ooh, the primary challenge to me is like, am I saying something new? Am I saying something that is adding to the conversation? you know, Being a playwright, especially a playwright who participates in the new play exchange, who goes and facilitates new play readings and responds to new plays all the time, I see a lot of new work. And the question I always have is like, am I saying something different or unique enough to warrant, you know, the writing of this play? Um, and so I spend a lot of time actually researching what have other playwrights said about this topic, what else is being written about this, and from what angle. And I think that's the greatest challenge for me because I think that all plays are important, and I also want to stand out in a way whenever I'm looking at any sort of topic or theme.
Mm. Tell me, you told me about your friend, the dramaturg, and I think you do a lot of different communication with different kind of professionals.
Yes.
But tell me about your perspective in terms of collaboration and its role in your work.
Oh yeah, I think that for me, I find that I flourish more the more people I can kind of get in on an idea, right? So like I'll have director friends and I'm like, "Hey, I have this idea for a play. I haven't started yet. I just want to talk to you about it." Same thing with my dramaturg friend. Same thing with like actors I know, right? Just to kind of get their litness on how they feel about it, what excites them about the idea, what they're kind of pulled to, where they already have questions based on that and the idea. And I think my writing is richer for it. The thing that I found that I really benefit from is not waiting until a reading or an audience is in front of it to get that initial feedback, because I think that then there's just a lot of work that you have to do to kind of not necessarily course correct, but respond right. But if I have trusted artists that I can kind of bounce ideas off of early on, I think my drafts are stronger for it, and I feel more settled in the piece because I've had that communication early on. So the earlier I can get people in on the idea, at least thinking about the idea with me, um, the more I benefit personally.
What is the theme you hope most resonates with your work?
Ooh, the theme I hope resonates most with my work um, is that ooh, hopefully one day we won't have to talk about the things I talk about. Um, there was a production of my play number 6 during the pandemic. It's about um, It's about the Cincinnati race riots, and the dramaturg for that production had asked me for the program, "What do you want people to take away?" And I was like, "I want this play to not have to be done. I want to be in a world where the idea of this play feels archaic." Um, and so, like, the theme of, oh, we've made progress, but we're still at the same place, especially when it comes to race relations or any form of bigotry, I think is, I want people to walk away and be like, we shouldn't have to have this conversation anymore. Um, I want to be out of a job, at least in that theme, in that realm. I really do. Uh, yeah, I don't know how else to say that.
No, that's great. Do you find it necessary to define yourself as a certain kind of writer?
I used to, and mostly for the grants and the applications who ask you to write your artistic statement and pin yourself down and define what box you're in. But what I found is that I've started just talking about the thing that I'm interested in now. Um, because for me, I'm interested in all forms of writing. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, but I also love fantasy, but I also love, Afrofuturism. And at the same time, I love the classics. And, I can pull from all those things. And so I've just gotten to the point where I start defining what the piece is doing, right? I'm constantly pushing myself as a writer to try to tap into those different genres and ideas, and because of that, I find it really hard to define, like, the kind of writer I am outside of, my plays are funny until they're not, which I think is just a common theme regardless of genre or theme. um but I used to think that I had to define what kind of writer I am, and now I've just been like, I'm a writer and these are the things I've written so far.
What do you do when you feel blocked?
Ooh, I have multiple projects for that very reason. I kind of move on to the next one. And someone actually said something to me, I want to say like 2, 3 years ago, that kind of rocked my world when it comes to writer's block. Is that I need to check to see if I'm asking my characters to say or do something that they wouldn't normally do. They're like, there's some reason that there's some resistance there from the characters, and are you having them try to operate outside of their value system? Are you trying to, what's the thing that you're trying to have them do that is contradictory to what you set up before? And so, whenever I get blocked, I look at the characters and the scene that I'm in, and I'll do that, classic sort of asking myself all those questions about the character that, have I asked before? Who's their favorite person in the world? What's their favorite song? All that stuff that we ask actors to do, I'll ask myself that as a playwright, hoping to hopefully unlock some knowledge about the character that I can use to move forward.
All right. I have a tough one for you. We're going to
Okay.
shift. What does inclusion mean to you?
Oh man, I feel like that's a multifaceted question. From a American theater standpoint, it is, um, stories from different perspectives being so normalized that it's not like, oh my gosh, look at us, we're doing the Asian play. Oh my gosh, look at us, we're doing the black play. Like, we're doing a play that happens to have those characters, right? The other thing, from a playwriting perspective, it is looking at the very real fact that ageism, it reeks in the American theater, and these new play incubators and things like that, right? Looking beyond race and sexual identity, um, and looking at, age and level of education. Like, I'm lucky enough to have an MFA, but some of the best writers I know have no classical training, and like that being a valid way forward in our industry as well. Um, and then on stage, writers being able to write whatever they're drawn to, as long as they have a way in. We don't want to be disrespectful, and we don't want to co-op other people's stories, but I can write as a son, or I can write as a man, I can write as a queer man, I can write all these stories, and I can bring people who don't necessarily look like me into those stories, as long as I'm speaking from that perspective. And I think exploring the wholeness of writers, uh that's inclusion to me, right? Allowing them to be complete people in their writing.
What are your thoughts on the current state of theater industry from the perspective of the playwright? And what do you think are the challenge? What are the biggest challenges we face as playwrights in today's theater industry?
Yeah, my perspective is that we are finally getting out of this mode of being what I call grateful to the point of detriment, right? I was always taught coming up that I just have to be thankful that anyone's even doing my work or even considering my work, which I'm always thankful. But I feel like that thankfulness has come to the point where at some point in time we don't advocate for ourselves, and we'll get walked on, or we'll have unfair contracts, or we won't be paid for rehearsal even though we're taking time out of our lives to be there as well when we could be doing other things that make us money, right? And our advocacy has gotten lost in this overabundance of like bowing down because someone on high chose us. And also this idea of scarcity, right? I understand that the financial model around theater has absolutely shifted. Things, theater companies have been struggling since the pandemic. But whenever I see an empty space uh, in like a shopping center, I'm like, that could be a space where a small company pop something up, right? But we've just been told it's just way too hard. You shouldn't do it. It's just way too hard. You shouldn't do it. And so I feel as a playwright, we feel like there's a lot of gates in the way. There's a lot of gatekeepers, which is absolutely true. And a lot of times we like bow down to those gatekeepers in hopes of getting the mystical production that's going to push us all through. Which studies have shown that like the title world premiere doesn't move tickets in the way that people think it does, right? um, and that also scares theaters away from doing new work, but also where does work get put up so that way it can be vetted in a way that theaters are looking for. um, yeah, I think so much of it has been caught on the idea of the machine and pulled away from the idea of relationships, um, that people are afraid to take chances, which is, I think, the playwrights are constantly trying to navigate. How do I have a relationship with an institution that feels like it doesn't want to take a chance on me to begin with? Yeah.
What are you excited about when you look at the landscape of the industry? Is there anything that you're like, oh, that's good, and I'm excited about that?
Yeah, I am excited about. Luckily, because I'm in education, I get to see a lot of people roll out of school and actively try to change things. So I'm excited about the young, scrappy companies that are out there trying to do new, who are not trying, they are succeeding. They're doing new work, right? I'm excited about the companies who are dedicated to pushing forth new work. And I'm also excited about the use of technology, um, in the ability to expand what the playwright can do, right? Being able to write that quote unquote impossible stage direction, and then having someone who's like, oh, actually, I can program that and that can happen right now and it can be projected on the screen. I'm forever amazed by our technical friends who work with projections and media design, because I think that they're brilliant. Um, and all those things together, I think, are really, really exciting. Also, I'm also really excited at the number of people who have realized like the things like the Humanifest are gone, the Lark is gone, and instead of sitting around and just bemoaning the fact that these new work incubators of the American theater have disappeared, they're like, then how can I fill that space? Maybe not to that extent, but what can I offer to help promote new work?
What role do you think playwrights have in shaping society and sparking important conversation?
I think it's necessary. I think it's absolutely necessary for the playwright to kind of be at the center of that. Because playwrights are also being picked up for television and movies, which we know have a wide penetration into the zeitgeist. And so the playwright mind is shaping the media landscape on that front as well. But then also, I think that the playwright can speak to a local community in a way that other forms of media can't, right? We can write something specific to Pittsburgh. We can write something specific. I can write something specific to Texas and the political landscape, right? And oftentimes I write stuff based on my experience of living in Texas, and that immediacy, the ability to have people in your community talk about things in their community in a way that's visceral and in your face and tactile, I think is really important. Um, and I feel like we don't often take advantage of that enough, but the people who do, they really excite me because I'm like, oh yeah, you can touch on something that is important to this. You can cater your story to the experiences of those around you in a way that TV and movies just can't, you know?
Hmm. So what are you working on next?
Oh Lord, I'm working on the book for a Moby Dick musical, which is not, specific to Pittsburgh in any way, shape, or form. But I was asked to come onto this project, and so it's called Kill the Whale, and I've been brought onto that project to do that. But on a personal note, I'm kicking around the idea of a brother and sister who have to come together to write their siblings' obituary and eulogy. Um, this was really inspired by me and my older sister's relationship. No, none of my other siblings have passed away, but uh, I really started to notice as I grew up the silent ways that she cared for me when I was little, and the ways that we care for each other now as adults, and hearing us talk about our lives and the two perspectives that we had on the same experiences. And I'm really interested in exploring that relationship and how that manifests on stage. And I just really love brother and sister plays. Um, Siblings are people that you're bound to for life, whether you like to or not. Like, you literally have no choice. So um, I'm really interested in writing a two-hander that just kind of dives into that.
I ask everybody this question. What is your favorite rejection story?
Oh, my favorite rejection story. You know what? It was where one theater company was just upfront about their limitations in casting. I wrote Lion's Den. I submitted it to a program, and they were like, we would love to do it, but we just don't have enough Black people in our casting pool, and we don't have the grant money to fly them in and house them. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of messed up, but thank you so much for telling me the reason why this play is not getting in. And I think that the reason that's my favorite is because I realized it's not always about my quality of work. There's 1,000 other factors that go into whether my play gets selected or not. And so I just got to keep doing me, and I can't, bemoan the fact that I didn't get in somewhere because I don't know what their situation is. So I really appreciate that company for being honest with me about the reason why the play didn't get selected.
TJ Young, you are an amazing talent. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of
fun. Today's episode, as always, has been brought to you by Point Park University's MFA in Writing for Screen and Stage. I got my degree there. You should consider getting your own. There are artistic gifts available. Every week, we hope to drop new episodes. This is now season 2. And TJ Young, thank you again so much.
Thank you. Anytime.